All right, let's do a little review of finding area of some basic shapes. We're going to need this skill as we get into the upcoming weeks when we start working on surface area and volume. Okay, so squares, as we know, have 4 equal sides. My drawing there might be a little bit off, but I represented this by showing you that the 2 side lengths are exactly the same. So to find the area of squares, you can use, so the area is either equal to the side length squared, or this is the same thing as the side length times the side length, right? Length times width. It's essentially the same. Okay, so I've got a little square here. I found a square around my house, and let's take some measurements of it and find the area of the top of this square. We could do it like that so there's not a hole in it. Okay, let's see here. Let's use centimeters, I think. So if we do centimeters, we get about 4.2 centimeters, and then again 4.2 centimeters. So good, this is a perfect square. All right, so if our square is 4.2, to find the area of this red square, I'm gonna do 4.2 squared, or 4.2 times 4.2, and this is centimeters. So then when I do this in my calculator, 4.2, I'm going to use the square button, and I get 17.64. 17.64 square centimeters. That basically means that if I broke this down into centimeters, into little teeny tiny centimeter squares, there would be 17 and 64 hundredths little tiny centimeter squares inside this that covers this space. Okay, so that's how you find area of a square. I'll leave that right there. All right, now for rectangles. To find the area of a rectangle, it's the exact same thing, except we're dealing with 2 different measurements, right? We're dealing with length and width, which have different numbers, because these are not the same length. So to find area of a rectangle, it is simply length times width. We use a cursive L just so that it doesn't look like the number 1. All right, now again, looking around my house for some fun things, I found this little rectangle card. Okay, this one I'm going to measure in inches. All right, when I measure the fire truck card, I get that it is 5 inches in length and 3.5 inches in its width. 3.5. So for the area of the fire truck card, I'm going to do 3.5 times 5. All right, let's do that in a calculator. And remember, this was inches. So 3.5 times 5, and I get 17.5 inches squared. Okay, that's pretty funny that we got very similar answers there for 2 very different size things. But remember, this is why recording the units is always really important. This one we measured in centimeters, so this was 17 square centimeters, and this one was inches. This was 17.5 square inches. Okay, that's why recording your units is so important. All right, so that's squares and rectangles. Let's do a little review of triangles. All right, hopefully you guys remember how to find the area of a triangle. Okay, triangles. All right, now triangles have they come in all sorts of different sizes. Some of them are right triangles, some are acute, some are obtuse, some are isosceles, some are equilateral. They're all different, but they all have a base and they all have a height. Okay, this would be the height. If it looks like this, if it's a right triangle, then this would be the base and this would be the height. Okay, so there's 2 different representations of triangles there. The formula to find area for a triangle. If you notice, a triangle is really, if I do some dot 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 here, this is actually half of a square, right? Or half of a rectangle. So to find area of a triangle, you just do base times height, and then you divide it by 2. Alrighty, so I found a triangle in my house, of course. Here's my cute little green triangle, and we can find the area of the flat side of this. Alright, so let's see the triangle. This is from here to here. Ooh, let's do centimeters. I think inches is going to be too much. So this is about, looks like about 4.7. Alright, so our triangle is going to be about 4.7 for the base times, let's do centimeters again, and well, that's a nice even 4, I think. 4 centimeters tall, so 4.7 times 4, and then we'll divide by 2. And remember, you have to follow order of operations, so we will multiply and then we will divide. So 4.7 times 4 equals 18.8, and then I'm going to divide that by 2, and I get 9.4. 9 4/10, and remember we used centimeters, and since it's area, since it is the space, this entire space here, not just the outline, but the entire space, we do units squared. 9.4, 9 4/10 centimeters squared. Okay, so we did our squares, our rectangles, our triangles. Lastly, we need to do a circle. And I know that this was something that was a little bit challenging for you guys in the first week. I told you we would come back and we would review it. Okay, so for a circle, just like with all of the other shapes, we have a formula. The formula for area of a circle, I remember this by the little ditty in my head, apple pies are squared. So in order to find the area of a circle, I need to know that pi is equal to 3.14, and then it's times the radius squared. That's what we're going to do. All right, I've got a green circle. The easiest measurement to find on a circle is the distance across it, which is called the diameter. So for this circle, and I'm gonna sketch this little circle here, so you guys can have an idea of what's going on. This might be a little bit sloppy. There we go. Okay. The diameter of this circle, if I measure it on the little foam circle, let's do centimeters. Okay, I get a nice even 5.5 centimeters if I do it right on the circle. So the diameter from one edge of the circle to the other is 5.5 centimeters. This is the diameter. Okay, for my formula, I need the radius. Remember, the radius is half of a diameter. The radius is halfway across. So in order to find the radius, I have to take this diameter and divide it by 2. So the radius, I'll do this over here, radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. And in this case, the diameter is 5 5/10. So I will just 5 5/10 divided by 2 equals 2.75. 2 75 centimeters. So now I'm going to take this number and I'm going to plug that up into my formula over here. All right. So the area of a circle is equal to 3.14 times the radius, which is 2.75 squared. Okay, order of operations. I have to do my exponents first, right? So I still have the 2 75 in my calculator. Let's square it. All right, I got 7.5625. I'm just going to leave that there, and then I'm going to multiply it by 3.14. And I get this crazy number. All right, typically with these, you need to make sure you read your directions. it's either going to tell you to round to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredths. For this one, let's round to the nearest tenths place because that's what we've been doing. So I'm going to say that the area of this is approximately 23 7/10. And then we'll put the units, centimeters squared. All right. I'm just going to record this here so I know what I did. 7.5625